Hello.
Hi.
Greetings.
There's so
Get
many.
opend tijere gewerem iets weer reden nur auf Jiddisch für die ganze Nacht.
All right, that's enough for me, guys.
Sehr gut.
Sehr gut, yeah. L'chaim. Oh, Lord.
Ich
that's
kann
gonna be
Deutsch,
embarrassing.
aber
Oh.
you did
Ja, ein bisschen Deutsch.
ein bisschen.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to English before Sam leaves.
Am I the only non-Jew here?
The minority.
Oh,
Oh, good.
Let's hang up on him.
Excellent. Someone can turn the lights on for us. Or do you want to buy my chametz?
That's leavened bread for
Let's make
Passover.
more jokes.
yes.
Let's make more jokes that he won't
I know
understand.
gefilte fish.
Yeah.
Gefilte
something
fish
about
is
bagels.
basically the joke of the Ashkenazi people that we were
Yeah.
like, yeah, we really eat this we swear.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to tell some questionably accurate stories about there being fish in bathtubs to make it.
It
There-
can be good if
Yeah.
it's prepared right.
No,
It
I
can
actually
be
like
good.
gefilte fish.
But,
Hey,
but usually it's not. I'll be
I'm
honest.
Irish. We just boil everything until there's no more taste left in it.
That's what gefilte fish is.
Yes.
It's,
Oh, okay.
it's
You'll love
boiled,
it.
mashed up
Common
salmon.
ground for our peoples.
Yeah.
It's like Scrapple, but what if instead of deep frying it,
Hmm.
Yeah.
boiled it and made it from fish? What if we just made it worse?
What if this was just a podcast?
Well, the season is here to talk about some of our best foods that we eat on purpose, including
Yeah.
bitter herbs dipped in salt water.
The tears of our ancestors.
The tears of
Yeah.
our ancestors, an egg, and the driest cracker that you've ever tasted.
I have an acquaintance that works at the Bible Museum. He is
Really? Wait, the one in DC or the one here?
the one in DC.
That place is. I have some stories.
Yeah. I have some stories about this guy too. But he has done some research into like what would have actually been eaten during the Exodus, and he proved my theory correct that Indian roti is probably closer to what was actually being eaten because it's just an unleavened flatbread.
Well, that we know that. I mean, like there's. I have a recipe in one of my cookbooks for make it yourself matzah, and it doesn't come out like the. This is what we eat is like Industrial Revolution era.
Oh yeah. It's all mass produced, and anyway, we are here for an actual purpose.
They part of the season. I'm sure they can get a pizza or something, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, matzah pizza is what I will live on next week. So.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Gabe. You wanted to start an episode or something?
Only because we have 10 pages of notes to get through in an hour and a half. So
yeah, this is the problem with Gabe and myself trying to make one notes document is like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, when I first started writing it and I saw like the blank, like little like Gabe put Fayge, Gabe, and I was like, okay, I have to look good. It's like, okay, book report time.
So
well, I guess we should. We should probably do introductions.
Oh, that's probably more important.
That's a really good idea.
10 minutes in. What the hell are these people?
This is what editing is for.
Yeah. No, we keep all of this.
Good. Excellent.
Well, all right, I'll go first.
It's like it's your podcast. You should
well, then you should introduce us, Sam, since...
Is this a Labor John official episode?
Sure.
I have no idea what's going on. Hello and welcome to the Labor D-lister John history of America. My name is Young Sam James. I was totally unprepared for this, so I'm just going to give you my name and that's it. Pronouns he, him, and I go over to my left and everybody's left to my co-host.
I'm Gabe. I also use he/him pronouns, and I'm from the Labor Labortron podcast, which is a labor history podcast. Anyway, Fayga.
Hi, I'm Fayga. I use any pronouns, they, she, whatever feels cool in that moment. And I'm from D-Listers of History.
Awesome.
Isa.
I'm Isa. Isa Segalovich. I am a she/her, and I am the second half of D-Listers of History. And it's lovely to meet everybody.
Yeah. This is our first actual, I think first collaboration episode for both podcasts.
Yes.
Because Sam and I have done some interviews, but not any collabs before.
Yeah.
I'm excited. And I'm excited to talk about a person who I definitely would follow her Twitter feed to watch the train wreck that is her life.
Ooh.
That's a good point.
I'm so nervous.
Who are we learning about today?
I don't know how to say her name.
Oh, no.
That's a great start. That is the best start.
Gabe and I actually texted back and forth about it a little bit. Voltairine de Cleyre?
I think it is Voltairine de Cleyre.
I'm sorry. You're going to have to
say de Cleyre
dumb
the
that down
entire
for
time.
me.
She was named after Voltaire, but she's a she, so they added an E on the end and said, that's a name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, in the French way. Is she French?
Yes, she is. Well, she was not real. I mean, I talk for a living. She was born in 1866 in Leslie, Michigan, but her parents, one of them, her father was French Catholic. That's where that came from. I wrote on and off because that he struck me as the type who is not Catholic at all, and then one day was like the most religious. And then 3 years later, no more. He was a socialist, and he fought for the Union in the American Civil War.
Okay.
And that's how he got citizenship in the United States. And her mother, he has a name. His name's Hector. And her mom was raised Puritan from upstate New York. To abolitionist parents who were active participants on the Underground Railroad.
Cool.
Yeah, so she's got some pretty cool parents.
Yeah, neat start.
I'm digging this.
I don't know how we're doing this, Gabe. I just sort of started talking.
No, I think that works. Because I have focused mostly on kind of the narrative around
part,
those two events later on in her life. So if you want to cover more of the broad history, I think that works.
I can do that. Yeah, so she, like I said, she was named for Voltaire. And she was rebellious and a free thinker, which is not surprising because she was born of rebellious free thinkers. Who I think were less excited that their kid was like that, but as happens. She grew up in extreme poverty. Her father was a traveling tailor.
Just real quick.
God damn it.
I want to issue a correction to a previous episode you guys did.
Oh no! What did we do?
On Ida Tarbell. I wanted to give more explanation of what a joiner is.
Oh, you know what? When I said that, I was like, Gabe is gonna come for me. It was in my head. That, and then later with the person who, one of our listeners who gets on me when I mentioned Star Trek. Those were the two things that I was. Oh no! I'm just gonna. This is killing me. What's a joiner, Gabe?
What's a joiner?
Today we would call them a finish carpenter. When you're building a framed house, you would have a carpenter that would actually do all of the big timber pieces. Then after the carpenter is done, carpenters would also lay floor and roofs. Then you would have a joiner come in who would put in all of the windows, all of the doors, all of the trim work, and any built-in cabinets. So if you had shelving that was built into the wall, a joiner would do that. And they would do all of the crown molding and footers and chair rails and everything around the house. Then after that, to furnish the house, you would have a furniture maker who would do all of your tables and chairs and bed frames, and then a cabinet maker who would make all of your like chests of drawers and cupboards and stuff like that. And all of these were very specific and separate trades that had all of their own guilds. And they all disliked each other, and there's lots of legal battles over who was allowed to do what on different jobs.
Gabe, yes or no? You agreed to this collaboration just to correct Fayge?
No, we agreed. I can prove it because that episode came out after I agreed to the collaboration.
Okay. Let the record show.
I have to say, my pedantic brain is like, so technically they were joining Pieces of Wood together.
Yes. However,
we're entirely wrong.
It's
there's more to it. I get it.
A man is a featherless biped. So
behold a man.
Anyway.
Well, her father was not a joiner. No. He was a tailor, and I know what a tailor does.
Gabe, what is a tailor?
Why was he a traveling tailor though?
Because apparently this is a thing. I had never heard of this. I don't know if Gabe had heard of this, but apparently...
Don't ask Gabe any more questions. Please.
So, apparently, like, that was a thing some tailors did. Like, he just traveled around, and I don't know if he had, like, special skills that maybe were less common, or... what I do know is that when he got married, he decided to stop traveling, and that did not work out well for him and his... Like, apparently, where they lived, people knew how to sew their own stuff, so they didn't really need him.
Aw.
Yeah.
If you were a journeyman tailor, but like couldn't afford to set up an actual shop, or no one was willing to hire you, you would just you would literally journey from town to town doing odd jobs. So like if someone needed their jacket altered or something like that, you would do all of the alterations, but you weren't making fresh suits of clothes because that required a shop, because you needed to be able to like go out and buy all of the fabric and have that set up. And I'm sure that I'm going to get yelled at by all of my 18th century tailor friends. So
I mean, and they are vicious.
No, they are. Like,
yeah.
I don't
have
18th century tailor friends, but I briefly got involved in Civil War reenacting, and it is intense. Oh my god. Yeah, so he apparently wasn't very good at tailoring because he couldn't make it. He couldn't hack it, staying in one place. So he went back on the road, and he never went home again. But he would send money home. So he wasn't like completely like, he didn't like go down the street for some cigarettes and disappear. Like he was still in touch. He just never actually like went and lived with them again. So we decided she's De Cleyre, right? I'm not even trying with her first name.
I'm calling her Lady Voltaire.
Ooh.
I already written it down, so it's happening.
I can't imagine she'd like that very much, but you do you. She was very much a poet, and she started writing poetry from a very early age. And it's actually pretty good. Last time I brought poetry to our podcast, it was very bad. This is good poetry, at least for a 6-year-old. So her first known poem is, "I wish I was a little bird to live up in a tree, or a butterfly upon a flower, or maybe a honeybee. But more than all, I wish I was a great big man like Pa, and wouldn't have to stand around, but would have a chance to jaw." I know, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, she was 6.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. So she's, doing her thing, being rebellious, writing poetry. And her sister falls ill. There's a lot of illness in her family. Her mother had a chronic health condition that she passed on to both her daughters. And so her sister fell ill, and so De Cleyre went to live with her father in Port Huron, and he just kind of put her in a Catholic boarding school in Canada. And she likened the experience to prison.
Yeah.
It's 13 years of Catholic schooling in me. That is fair.
You'll imagine living there with the nuns, and there you go.
Oh my gosh.
And she actually had a physical breakdown just before graduation. And God, I'm just full of things I can't say in this. They called it, it's spelled Catarrh, so like Qatar. And I'm a little embarrassed. I actually asked my wife how to say this because she knows all this medical stuff.
Wait, say it again. Catarrh. Arr. Oh, Qatar. I don't know.
I mean, I know what it is because I looked it up. It's a like inflammation of your nasal passages, which sounds like not that big a deal. And I was really confused about it because I thought, okay, like you have sinus infections a lot, like that stinks, you know. But then I remembered they didn't have antibiotics, so it was actually kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she goes to Catholic school. She learns 0 marketable skills. She learned music and writing. So she started giving lessons in music and handwriting to earn money. And we're going into like 1885. She joins the Free Thought movement. Who are pretty cool. I've got more poetry.
Oh yeah. hit us with the poetry.
An excerpt from the poem The Burial of My Past Self. And now, humanity, I turn to you. I consecrate my service to the world. Perish the old love, welcome the new. Broad as the space isles where the stars are whirled. So she's improved since age 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so she in the free thought movement, she interacted with a lot of like anarchists and just socialists and a lot of anarchists, really. As how she came in touch with anarchists. And she was resistant to it at first. And she was involved with the free thought movement for the rest of her life. Like they were buddies. And this is how you should know this already. This is how I talk about history.
It's perfect.
I like it. Gabe should incorporate more of this.
Yeah.
They were just buddies.
Yeah.
Literally, I wrote an evaluation of a tour guide today, and I wrote impeccable vibes on it.
I mean,
literally, it was really partially because I was so tired, and I was just like, whatever. You had impeccable vibes.
That's what most like tour groups are kind of looking for.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's important.
The vibes. Yeah.
And then I wrote like 3 pages of, okay, so technically these things aren't true. But you looked great while you were doing it. Is everyone okay? That was a little scary.
Gabe has a tendency to just like break his microphone every time he records.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
He's here just to make sure I'm awake during the editing process. But I actually have to edit, and I actually have to listen to the episode.
I usually have to do that because I say too many times. Like if it was just Isa, it would take me 0 hours.
Oh, we used to cut out the ums, but then we just once we got really famous, you know, we just let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're not there yet. So, so she started her own podcast. She went on the lecture circuit. Which is a thing people did in those days. Mm-hmm. It's always interesting to me that this was like the thing to do in those days. You'd see like in the newspaper, like so-and-so is in town, and you go like listen to them.
Yeah. And I sort of wish we still had that like super low key, but lectures. Like I read like the Yiddish club in Philly had like mad lectures. And everybody was always going. And people started complaining that they were always in Yiddish. And I'm sure everybody was like, that's how we like it. And
preservation of the culture.
Yeah.
You say you still want that, but in a minute, Ticketmaster would be all over that.
Yeah, no, we don't need them.
It's also like today that would be like Joe Rogan and Tim Pool going out doing live podcast shows, and it would just be bad.
Yeah, yes. No, thank you. Yeah, so she goes on lecture circuit. 1887, she officially becomes a socialist. And
congratulations!
Then, yay! She got the the plaque to put up in her house.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And on May 4th, 1886, is the Haymarket Affair, and that turns everything upside down in her life. Gabe, do you want to explain the Haymarket Affair?
Yeah, so I
notes.
You gave Gabe the Haymarket Affair?
Yeah, I did.
I
literally wrote a comment. It was like, "Can you talk about this?" It's like, I don't feel like writing notes for this.
I specifically did not write notes so that I didn't write too much and then spend like an hour and a half talking about it. Basically, there was an 8-hour day movement in Chicago in 1886. This had been going on for a long while. But they declared that they were going to have a general strike on May 1st in 1886 to fight for the 8-hour day. This was a bunch of different unions in Chicago at the time, some independent ones, some organized with the Knights of Labor, some more like radical anarchist and socialist ones. It should also be like late 19th century gets really confusing because they use anarchist and socialist very interchangeably. And also
you have anarcho-socialists like
yes. And then communards was the other fun thing, which were the commune. Yeah. Communards were specifically people trying to recreate the Paris Commune.
Oh, those guys. I didn't know they had a name.
And it was more, that was like both used pejoratively and positively.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah. So anyway, Haymarket Affair, strike starts on May 1st. There's a bunch of, they are holding like big rallies every day, and it's actually going fairly peacefully. But everyone is still expecting violence to break out, in part because a lot of the anarchists that were operating and agitating in Chicago at the time, their approach to everything was basically like, yes, you should organize your workplace, but you should also put bombs in your boss's house. And so like lots of pamphlets like that were getting handed out. So the police were a little bit on edge. Then in the evening of May 4th, 1886, I believe Albert Parsons was giving a speech. Might have been Speece. I don't remember. But he was, this was in the Haymarket, which was like the central square in Chicago. They were giving a speech to a group of, I think, around 300 people. And there was a large crowd of police on the outside of the crowd. And the police had started to move in to kind of clear everyone out. It was supposed to be the last speech of the night. They were getting ready to basically force everyone to go back home and enforce a curfew. And then a bomb went off. No one knows exactly who did it, but it killed one of the officers, wounded a lot of others, and wounded some of the strikers as well. And that led to a big riot. There was shots exchanged, and then very briefly very quickly moving forward, they went around and gathered up all of the ringleaders, and there were 8 that they had arrested. They ended up hanging 4 of them, and I should have.
You got some pictures for us, Kate?
No, I was saying I should have the martyrs' names memorized, but I can never remember them. But they hanged Engel, Fisher, Parsons, and Speece. Engel, Fisher, and Speece were all German immigrants and very radical. Albert Parsons was a former Confederate officer in a Texan cavalry unit, who then married a it's unclear as to whether or not Lucy Parsons was formerly enslaved or if she was a free woman. In her lifetime, she claimed that she was Hispanic and not black, but that could have been a way to survive in Reconstruction era Texas. But they did have a biracial relationship like immediately after the Civil War in the center of Texas, and then it got really not fun then post Reconstruction they fled up to Chicago and kept agitating, and then after Albert Parsons' execution, Lucy Parsons went on to continue to be a very cool radical lady.
Wow. People are complicated, man. I love it. So Haymarket Affair happens, and initially de Cleyre is like, no, these people are terrible. They should be punished. And then she started I guess not watching. That would not be helping. Worked in those days. She kept track of the trial, and she realized it was a complete farce. And the trial, as I understand it, it was pretty clear to everyone that there was really no evidence against these people, and they were basically being executed for being anarchists, and that was all it was. And she did not consider herself an anarchist, but thought that was wrong because it is.
Yeah.
And so November 11th, 1887, the Haymarket martyrs are executed, and the next year, de Cleyre officially becomes an anarchist. So she gets the anarchist plaque to hang up on her wall.
Yay!
Oh, wow.
And she
hand engraved by George Soros.
Yes. And she moves to Philly.
Ooh.
Yes. The next year at 89. She went to Philly to speak at the Friendship Liberal League, and I guess decided she liked it. So she came here. And she made money by teaching music lessons and English to recent Jewish immigrants. And she even learned Yiddish as part of her work.
Cool.
Yeah.
And she, the book that I read had an entire chapter devoted to the various gentlemen who shared her bed. And it was a little difficult to parse out, like, what was actually important. What was
all
just
of it
rumor. So one of the people who seemed really important to me was Dyer Loom. He was older. Most of the men she was with were older. She said that he, in her words, he was her teacher, her confidant, and comrade. And they were probably also intermittent lovers, to use the term the book did. And
he had an impeccable vibe.
Indeed. So I don't know if I loved Loom's vibe, I'm going to be honest. So he apparently
just okay vibes.
Was a point of stability in her life, which I feel like says a lot about how unstable her life was, because this was not a stable human being.
Does not sound like the most stable.
So she was an anarchist, but she was opposed to violence. And Loom was like, nah, violence is great. You should do that if it's necessary. And so through him, de Cleyre moves from being a communist and a collectivist to more of the sort of mutualism and voluntary cooperation side of anarchy. And but both of them really thought it was important to maintain connection to all sides of the anarchist movement. So we'll go into this a little bit later, but there was unsurprisingly, a lot of disagreement amongst the various factions of anarchy, and they felt that, we should all we're all anarchists, man. Let's
all just get along.
You mean there shouldn't be left-wing infighting?
I know, shocking, right?
We just stop this infighting, and you guys should just believe whatever I say is true. Said every person who starts their video with, "Well, you need to stop this infighting, guys. Guys, stop.
Well, unsurprisingly, they were both impacted by Haymarket. Loom especially so because he was friends with the martyrs. He was actually the person who smuggled a dynamite cigar to Ling, which he used in prison to take his own life.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my
that went downhill.
And Gabe was like waiting. He's like, it's coming. It's cigar in his
face. God, suicide by a Looney Tunes gag.
Yep.
Jesus.
I took a sip of wine at exactly the wrong time.
Yikes!
That's one way to go. That's one way to go.
Yeah, it's a pretty epic way to go about that, I guess.
Out with a bang. I'm so sorry to my anarchist forefathers.
What it feels like to chew 5 gum.
Oh no.
I think we've lost Isa.
Hello to our newest sponsor, 5 Gum.
So, he struggled with mental illness, and he did die by suicide in 1892. And she wrote a poem, and I put page 68 because I usually have the book right next to me, and I don't this time.
It's a very short but very good poem.
All right.
It says page 68.
Just page 68.
Not gonna make y'all wait while I go find the book.
Doesn't rhyme, but I like it.
Yeah.
It's like the one time I don't have the book with me. Another person who was really important in her life was in 1888. She met James B. Eliot, who was not an anarchist, but he was a member of the free thought movement. And they broke up because he wanted to domesticate de Cleyre. And I thought this was really interesting. So she was very, she was not here to keep house. There was a lot of really interesting, cool women at that time who did a lot of interesting, cool things. And then they got married. And it's not that their lives ended per se, but their focus changed. So for example, William Taft's, the president, his wife, was doing some stuff that was really, really forward thinking and educational theory that just got dropped and wouldn't get picked up again until Montessori in the 20th century. And so de Cleyre was not about that life. And Eliot, I guess, was one of these folks that was feminist until it meant he had to cook his own dinner. And
Taft's daughter did get arrested on the picket line in Philly.
And
during the shirtwaist strikes.
And TR's daughter was just driving fast cars and smoking cigarettes and
Yes, she was.
So there were some cool ladies in this time frame. But de Cleyre was not about being domesticated, but they still had a child together whose name was Harry. And de Cleyre was not a good, I'm just going to go ahead and say she was a bad mother.
Oh.
She did not have the financial, emotional, nor physical capability to be a mother. She had to deal with chronic illness, but that was honestly the least of it. She just didn't have any interest in it. So she would send money back to Harry. But that was basically it. He loved her though. When people interviewed him about her, he spoke very highly of her. So I don't know what's going on. He took her last name, even though he was raised by his father and his father's family. So I don't know what exactly was going on there, but I'm interested to learn more.
Yeah.
Because she didn't sound very supportive. But maybe he saw what she was doing was more important, maybe, to the sort of collective us. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
There's so many leaders who, you know, were not great moms and dads and parents out there who just lives were just so totally about whatever movement they were a part of that they could not be there for their kids. And it's always like a little heartbreaking to learn about.
And to be fair, I have a feeling she wouldn't have chosen to be a mother if that had been within her purview at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but just based on how she lived her life, like I don't think she was the type who would like make a kid and be like, okay, peace, if she had any other option.
Yeah.
I'm surprised because none of the newspaper articles mentioned that she had a kid, and none of them were very favorable towards her. And I'm very surprised the Inquirer was like, Voltairine de Cleyre, who abandoned her child, did this, and this today.
That is interesting, actually. I wonder how common knowledge that was.
Yeah.
Because she was friendly. She was friendly with Elliot. That was his name, right? Yeah. And so it's possible that he didn't share that far and wide. Like they were friendly, they just weren't together. They even lived in the same building for a while, actually, even when they weren't together. The building was owned by Elliot's mother, if I remember correctly.
Ooh, awkward.
Apparently not, though. Like that was my first thought too, but apparently it was chill. I don't know. Let's see. So that was the only, like, this book, I went on and on about her relationship with men, and those were the only two I thought were at all important. More important is her relationship with Emma Goldman, who is awesome. And
are we going to get saucy with Emma Goldman? Are we getting spicy?
So here's the thing: is I'm siding with Goldman on this one. So they were initially, de Cleyre was really excited to have a female anarchist friend, and was very like, you know, warm towards her. And then when Goldman was in prison, de Cleyre wanted to visit, but she wanted to bring her current lover along, whose name was Samuel H. Gordon. And Goldman thought that Gordon was just
bad news
bears. Yeah. And she only got 2 visits a month, I think it was. So she didn't want to waste one of those visits on this guy who she didn't like, which I think is reasonable. And de Cleyre got really pissed off and refused to ever speak to Emma Goldman again based on this.
That does not seem quite fair.
Even after she broke up with Gordon, who was actually really bad for her, apparently.
Yeah.
So
I'm with Emma on this.
Yeah, same.
As I usually am.
This is part of why I was reading this, and when I was reading the book, I was like, this is the sort of person that I would periodically think I should unfriend them on Facebook. And then go, but what would I do if I didn't have their posts?
That's the entertain.
Yeah.
And I really think that's who she would have been in my life if she was here now.
Yes, there's like those people. There's like, I have like a number of mutuals on TikTok that if you're listening to this, it's not you. That I'm like, I should unfollow you. I should. There's been too many controversies, but then I'll miss the friends only videos. Like, and then I won't have an in. Aww. So why would I will not unfollow unless it gets really bad. So I feel like that's where I would be with her. You're like, you made some bad choices, but
yeah, and also it's one of these people where it's like, oh, you're really great, but your personal life is a mess, yo.
Yeah.
Part of why her personal life is a mess, in my personal opinion, is that she refused to accept payment for her work in the anarchist movement. And like, I get it, but and this is where Isa's heard me get on this soapbox many a time. This is where I think we need to balance between the world as it ought to be and the world as it is. And the world as it is, you need to pay rent, de Cleyre, and you are putting your labor towards this.
Ms. Voltaire, you need to pay rent. That my thing as become what now that I'm an independent contractor, my main thing is like, as long as I can pay rent, I would like to get paid for the things that I do, even if like I'm not here to make the millions, but I do need to pay rent so that I can continue doing work.
Yeah, like need to pay groceries, you know?
Yeah.
It's also, if you're getting compensated for your own labor, like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like long as you're not exploiting someone else and profiting off of them, you're not doing anything wrong.
That's true.
Right. And this is like, I grew up with parents who thought I was going to be a business person and do business things.
Business Fayga.
Live in the suburbs. Have a large house. That's not what happened.
And now you're talking to me and Gabe. How the mighty have fallen.
Listen, I have 4 cats and live in West Philly. I fell long before y'all.
The business boys. Yeah. That's a specific cat account on TikTok.
I'm wearing their t-shirt.
Oh, are you the business boys?
Yeah, it's their Linda. Their Linda t-shirts. They were in love with Linda the possum for a while.
I love them so much. Anyway, I won't go into it.
Yeah, they're very good. Wow, I really lost my train of thought.
Last night, she had a
she talked shit about Goldman. That's why I was talking about that. She
lay off Goldman
because Goldman would accept payment for her work.
You got to be compensated for your time, you know?
Yeah. So, but she didn't just not take money. She talked shit about Goldman for doing it. And that meant that she had to, I know, I'm like, I know this person and they are definitely active on West Willie.
Messy, you know? Dirty laundry.
So she continues. So how she lived is she tutored. And the big problem with that is she, at this point, her illness that she had inherited from her mother was getting worse and worse. So she was like really struggling physically. And she had to tutor in English to pay her life. And then she additionally, on top of that, was like writing for anarchist newspapers and going on the lecture circuit and things like that. And it was just really wrecking her body. Which reading the book, I was like, just take money for your lectures. Just do it. I'm
forgetting. I'm forgetting which civil rights leader or labor union leader was it. Maybe it was Baird Reston. Ben's gonna scold me later because I don't remember. But basically saying that like maybe it's Cy Khan who said that, you know, I'm not gonna work more than my 40-hour work week because too many people died for that. Although to be fair, she was working before.
Yes.
Something that hadn't happened yet. But, you know, just to everyone out there that's doing the work, you got to take a rest. Otherwise, we burn out, man.
Yeah.
Well, how she prevented burnout was her plants and her pets.
Oh.
I know. I included this just because I thought it was a cute story. She had a cat and she was seeing this guy who didn't like cats. So she closed him up in like the coal chute or whatever. And coal chutes were pretty big at this time. Like as someone who has cats, like the cat was unhappy, but fine.
Okay.
Right?
My horror was choosing the man over the cat.
Well, and here's the thing: is the cat decided that he wasn't about coal chute life and ate like cats will, and she never saw the cat again, and she vowed never to put men ahead of her pets ever again.
Good.
Yes.
Oh my God. It's a coal chute life for us. It's
that's what the cat
life for us.
I was curious to see how far you could take those lyrics.
Do you have time?
So
Gabe warns me about my non sequiturs.
Listen, have you listened to my last podcast? We have both been so tired that like we cannot stay on topic.
The last one was a doozy.
We ended up talking about pizza for some reason. I don't know. So
I had you know what? I'm from New Haven. I have feelings about pizza. ones that
you're wrong. But
oh, you see, I have backup now. Before my only thing was like, well, I run the social media account, so this is the pizza that is good. So she's having a tough time, so she goes to Europe. Because apparently that was not a hard thing to do at the time. Apparently that was like not a big deal. And so she goes to Europe a bunch of times. She goes to England and Scotland and France. She had some buddies in Scotland. She was like absolutely loved. She went to Norway. She did not like Norway. And the whole time she was meeting with like the who's who of anarchy in Europe. And this is the part where I got a little overwhelmed. And and I was like, I don't know. She went to Europe a bunch of times and met a bunch of people, because the person who wrote this book like wants to write like a whole series about different anarchists. So there was a lot of like, and then she met this person, and then she's met this person. And I'll be honest, I don't know that much about anarchist history. So I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. This means nothing to me. So she met lots of people who are presumably important. When she returned to when she returned from Britain and France, she spoke out against the Spanish-American War and Manifest Destiny. So big ups. And I'm confused about what happened in these notes. Did I just write more on the bottom? Yes, I did. Okay. Sorry. I was like, wait, I'm getting to the end of my notes and I'm not done. Okay. So she comes back to the US. I included this quote because it's very good. She said, "I am once more in the land of the patriot and the home of that proud bird which steals everything it can from smaller birds, then sits and gloating with its victorious eye fixed on a vacancy, dreaming of what it will eat next."
She likes her bird.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she doesn't pull her punches.
Once again, didn't rhyme, but it's okay.
I'm into it. Yeah.
Going into the 20th century, she felt that anarchy was gaining ground in Philadelphia, that people were not weirded out by hearing the word anarchism or single tax, or sorry, that she was like, okay, people hear anarchism the same way they hear single tax or Democrat or whatever. Like it's just a part of the conversation. And things are going. Yeah, please.
I'll piggyback on that just a tiny bit, because there's some weird stuff happening, and we touched on this with the 1890s cloakmakers strike a little bit, Sam.
Okay.
That like the New York Jews were all socialists, and the Philly Jews were all like hardcore anarchists, and they hated each other. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff of like the anarchists in Philly would form a union and go and try and organize all of these people. And then socialist Jews from New York would come down and like try and undermine them and form a different union. Mm-hmm. And then there was always infighting there. And there were other things of like the cloakmakers in New York weren't initially willing to support the cloakmakers in Philly, even though both of them were on strike, because the New York cloakmakers were part of the like Social Democratic Party, and the Philly cloakmakers they weren't necessarily anarchists themselves, but one of the leading guys that organized them was an anarchist. And like, it's very petty.
I just can't with leftist infighting. I just can't.
It is
work this out later, guys.
What year was that?
That was the 1890 cloakmaker strike.
1890. Okay. There were I would say there were a bunch of anarchists in New York also, but yeah. We had all I will say on the Jewish leftist infighting is that there are stories about I had like at least two uncles. One was like a very politically active communist, and one was a very politically active socialist, and they just like hated each other's guts.
Which
is common.
I have a family member who was Charles Zimmerman. He was known as Sasha in the family, but he was the vice president of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. I think I always get it in the wrong order. And he wrote a letter just like an open letter denouncing how Jews were being treated in the Soviet Union. And my cousin Bernie, who was my favorite when I was a kid growing up, because he was just cantankerous old man. He refused to speak to Zimmerman because of that.
Oh, wow.
And they like both like went to Seder every year and just would not talk to each other.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, Bernie, the Jews were treated pretty poorly in the Soviet Union. Like, apparently he was a tanky, but I loved him growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything's sort of chugging along. She feels like things are kind of go on the up and up for anarchy, and then William McKinley is assassinated. And that stops. It stops being good. Everyone freaks out, and anarchy becomes like the boogeyman of everything. Which I have some interesting thoughts about. We'll talk about when we talk about Jogash.
So I'll jump into the couple specific events in her life. So we should say after McKinley, the police were basically trailing her and every other anarchist in Philly kind of 24/7. And just keeping tabs on everything. Because there was just the general assumption that every anarchist had a bomb in their pocket and they were going to go and murder people. But so she had taken up residence, by 1902, she had taken up residence at 807 Green Street. I've also seen it reported as 807 Fairmount, which is it's a block away from each other, but
I think the book I read suggested that she lived both on Fairmount and Green Street at various points.
Okay, so that could be the confusion.
She moved around a lot.
Yeah. But that was like the center of one of the working class Ashkenazi immigrant communities. Because that's where all the textile mills were.
Yeah, those are the Germans were up there, and the Russians were down in South Philly.
Yeah.
Later, the Russians were only at the very beginning of their wave at this point.
Yeah. And that's also why because I think her impression of anarchy not being a scary word for people was very much formed by the fact that she was in this like working class Jewish community that was already getting very radicalized even outside of her. And there were two organizations that were set up that were tied to the anarchist movement. There was the Jewish Federation of Labor, which was a Jewish industrial confederation of unions. I have not been able to find the exact start date of it, but it just shows up somewhere in the late 19th century.
One thing I've read about other time frames is one of the struggles of studying anarchists is they like don't keep notes.
Yeah. Yep.
Bad at note taking.
Well, because they don't want to be like trailed by the police. Like there's like it's for a good reason.
Yeah. I mean, it could also be a little bit of like an organizational thing.
Oh, that's why they don't take payment.
Yeah.
No paper trail.
I mean,
smart.
Yeah.
There were like after the because one of the things that was happening with the Haymarket is that when the Haymarket organizers were having meetings, there were lots of notes kept, which then the police took to be like, well, clearly this guy said that he doesn't like cops, and that means that you blew us up.
Oh.
So, like, there was some, basically, they got too good at OPSEC for historians, and it makes it really annoying.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Leave it somewhere where we can find it.
Yes. So then there's also the Pioneers of Liberty and the Knights of Liberty. both of which, if they were founded today, I would assume were white supremacist groups.
Yeah, right.
But these were two Yiddish anarchist organizations founded in Philly. Mostly.
Did you say the Knights of Liberty?
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a building off of the Knights of Labor. But the kind of the libertine anarchist movement of the period. So making it Liberty.
I see.
And then the Pioneers of Liberty were, I think, like a subset of that. And they struck me as, or from my understanding of it, they were more of the like propaganda of the deed, that they wanted to go out and be the like anarchist vanguard to start the revolution. But again, there's not a huge amount of information about them because there weren't any notes. But they did, they held the Yom Kippur feasts.
Nice.
And pissed off a lot of people by having or they would have a ball, or it was Yom Kippur balls. And they did it twice. Both times basically realized that it blew up in their faces because the whole rest of the Jewish community was like, no, we're not going to talk to you now. So we don't like that.
That's the kind of thing that I would see on some social media and I would laugh really hard and absolutely not participate in, but like, be really glad that someone was out there just like trolling the entire community.
This is a complete tangent, but one of my favorite things that the early Jewish Labor Bund ever did is they would target synagogues on Shabbos for their flyering. So they would go up and put up posters inside the synagogues on Friday night because no one could take them down until Saturday night.
That's funny.
That's a lot.
That is good. Yeah.
And that's like, you know your audience a little too well, and you're going to piss them off, but also not a terrible idea. Anyway, so at 2 p.m., December 19th, 1902, Voltairine stepped out of her house and walked down to 4th and Fairmount with a roll of music under her arm. She was waiting for the trolley at I believe, the southeast corner of 4th and Fairmount. And a man with spectacles and a mustache walked up to her, didn't say anything, and then fired 4 shots at her from a pistol.
Okay.
3 shots hit her in the chest, and then the man ran off.
Bitch.
De Cleyre ran down Green Street towards Oriana.
What?
Found a woman standing by her front door and she begged her to be let in. The woman told her to wait on the step.
Girl.
and then apparently like a minute later came back and let her in. And then that woman then ran out and found the nearest police officer to report like, hey, this woman with gunshots just showed up at my door.
What do you think she went in there to do? She's like, honey, there's a woman outside who was shot 4 times in the fucking chest.
She's bleeding all over my wet couch.
She's bleeding all over my stoop.
Yep.
Whoever's in there was like, let her in. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
There's nobody in there. She's talking to her cat. What should I do, Mr. Fluffy?
She had to go put her cat in the coal chute. And then luckily, and this is kind of the irony of all of the anarchist paranoia, that it meant that there were cops nearby because they were just always following De Cleyre.
Wow.
So the cops did manage to apprehend the guy that shot her, and then 2 detectives brought her to Hahnemann Hospital, which was a a lot of the Jewish hospitals in Philly, including Hahnemann, were set up as like sort of mutual aid hospitals for the Jewish immigrant community.
They were also into homeopathy, which is weird.
Yes. There's a really good blog post. I think it's on deadanarchists.org. That's about the anarchist doctors of Philadelphia, and like basically all of the major Jewish hospitals in Philly were all founded by like this group of anarchist doctors who also had a bunch of free clinics and free pharmacies.
Wow.
We should do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would require becoming doctors at this point, though.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh, I'm too tired to do that.
I know. That sounds...
It's a lot of work.
And circumventing all the insurance companies, too. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But, she was also accompanied to the hospital by Mary Hansen, who was an English woman, also an anarchist, who was working as her housekeeper, which that's how the newspaper reported it. But Hansen was also known to give speeches and be an active an active member of the anarchist circle. So I think that was probably just normal Inquirer misogyny. Then all right, where'd I go? Okay, so while in Hahnemann, the detectives brought her assailant to her while she was like laying in bed, bleeding out.
And he shot her 4 more times.
Yeah. At this point, they had pulled off his sunglasses or his spectacles and his fake mustache and presented him to her without those.
This is a Looney Tunes episode.
Yep.
What is happening?
And then De Cleyre identified him as a former pupil of hers.
Oh.
And the police asked, "Is this the man that shot you?" She said, "Does he say that he is?" And he shook his head. And then she said, "No, he's not the man that shot me."
Oh my goodness.
Yo, I'm done with her.
De Cleyre, this is her again. Is it because she like just, doesn't believe in the carceral system?
Yep.
Wow.
So Mary Hansen said to reporters afterwards, "She is true to her principles to the last. As an anarchist, she does not believe in law. If she lives, she would not prosecute him. If she dies, it would be her wish that he be not prosecuted."
I mean, there's something to be said for consistency, I guess.
Yeah, like
she really was that girl. What? Yeah. Why do we know why he wanted to shoot her?
We'll get into that.
Okay. So it wasn't just because she assigned like too much homework or something.
So his name was Herman Helcher. Okay. He was a 26-year-old immigrant. He had basically become infatuated with Voltairine. And he was convinced that they were in love.
Robinson.
Oh.
Yeah. So he apparently a couple years ago, it's a little unclear on the timeline, but a couple years ago, he was her student and had started making like very aggressive advances towards her. And so she cut him off and was like, "I'm not teaching you anymore. I don't want to see you. Go away." And he did. He respected that, left town.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, until he came back. So he left town for a bit and then had recently come back to Philly and had gotten obsessed with her again and had started writing letters to her and whatnot, which she never responded to. Like, she did not want anything to do with him, but he was obsessed with her. Yeah. So we're going to put a pin in that. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit.
They went off and shot Ronald Reagan.
Because there's more like crazy anarchist stuff going on as well while she's in Hahnemann.
I did want to point out Sam's excellent reference there, though.
Thank you.
Very good.
My Jodie Foster reference?
Yeah.
I got it where it counts. Gabe knows better. He just keeps plowing on through. Yep. He's like, I'm not going to stop because he'll double down.
Felt like that was good enough. That like it needed to be pointed out.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad there's somebody in this world who appreciates what I do on this.
Anyway, podcast. Moving on. But actually, moving on. She was also accompanied to Hanneman by Daniel A. Model. Who was a former student of hers and a socialist. He was also basically her family doctor. So he hopped on the police carriage that took her to Hanneman. Then while she was there, her condition was reviewed by Dr. William Williams Keene, who, like his name suggests, was not an anarchist and was a very hoity-toity doctor. And
sorry, what was his name again?
William Williams Keene.
William.
Yep, William Williams.
W squared.
You actually wait. I shit you not. I had a photography professor in college named William Williams.
I believe it.
He's a real man. Willie Williams as a group, they continue to exist today.
Was he kind of a jerk?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I know about this guy.
He is kind of. Oh yeah, you do. He's kind of a jerk. But the funniest thing about him, he's like this really like older, very very stern guy. And the funniest thing about him is that he has an Instagram account.
What?
That I would love to find at some point.
But he doesn't believe in digital photography. How?
But there are none of his photographs are on Instagram. It's all pictures. It's all selfies of him with his dog, with his basset hound. It's the weirdest thing because I don't think he really shows love to anybody in the world except for that dog.
Gabe is like, oh no, there are 3 of them now.
This poor guy's being raked across the coals and doesn't even know about it.
I
don't feel
okay.
Don't feel so that he listens to the podcast.
Don't feel too bad for him.
He's our sponsor this week, actually. Babe.
Willie Williams. Oh gosh.
Yeah, you don't need to feel too bad for him. I can tell you off mic about him.
He's fine. He's fine.
So William Williams Keene had made a name for himself because he removed a cancerous tumor from Grover Cleveland's jaw.
Okay.
So that was the moment I realized I needed to stop reading your notes because I saw that and was like, what? And I was like, cool. I just reacted in a way that doesn't make sense to anyone.
So he was the co-chair of surgery at Jefferson University, as well as the president of the American Medical Association. So now we have the question. Yeah. Now we have the question of why is this guy going in and treating this broke anarchist lady who just got shot? Okay. And 2 of his former students, Leo Gartman and Bernard Siegel, were 2 of the other anarchist doctors in Philly who had been following de Cleyre's speeches and were, I wouldn't say disciples, but were fans of hers. And so it seems likely that the 2 of them probably fangirled in the hospital finding out, oh, Voltairine de Cleyre is here with bullet wounds. We should go get Dr. William Williams and impress her. So they brought in...
I'm obsessed with the idea of people from the early 20th century in the ties and the hats and the vests and stuff, fangirling. I'm really into it.
Clothes were a lot tighter back then, so it was just all fainting. Everything
was. But then after she was stable. Oh yeah. So I should also say it was determined that they couldn't get the bullets out of her.
Okay.
And this was determined. Yeah.
What they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, apparently that was like a homeopathy thing too, right? Like
to leave the bullets in.
Oh,
that's what my book said. I don't know. All I know about homeopathy is you like water remembers that it touched mint at some point.
And and you light some candles around her and all that.
Somehow it doesn't
Tibetan
remember.
Chants. Yeah.
Somehow it doesn't remember the dinosaur poop. It probably also interacted with at some point. But
well, you have to shoot yourself with smaller bullets and build up an immunity to larger bullets.
Smaller and smaller.
So they're not following proper homeopathic procedure here. But so while De Cleyre was in hospital, she, like other anarchists and reporters and everyone, kept coming up and talking to her while she was supposed to be recovering. And some of them would give her shit because she was treated by Keene, who was a vivisectionist, which meant he performed experimental surgery on live animals. And De Cleyre was opposed to that because
she was a live animal.
Yes. I mean, you're not that wrong. And but she responded to that accusation by saying that she had as much choice in her physician as did a vivisected dog.
Oh.
So she was like, I was lying in bed with bullets in my gut. I'm not going to say no to a doctor.
I mean, she would, though.
Well, yeah.
That's true.
It's possible that she was not entirely awake during this.
Oh, no, I'm assuming that's what happened. I just if she were awake, she absolutely would refuse to be treated. Like, that was the kind of person she was.
Yeah.
So while De Cleyre was staunchly against punishing Helcher at all, the Philadelphia Police Department disagreed with that decision.
Imagine.
And so, like I had said, they'd basically been like trailing her for the past couple of years because they expected her to start blowing stuff up.
Which is wild because she was a pacifist for so long.
Yep.
Like, they were trailing the wrong anarchist.
Yeah. But while she was in hospital, the police had arrested Helcher, which is why they brought him up there to be identified. So after their initial attempt to have her identify him, they came back and asked for her assistance in trying him. And they did this like multiple times, hoping that she would eventually come around.
Was he still wearing his comically large mustache?
I don't think so. And not only that, but as the rest of the anarchist community found out about what was going on, they gathered money together to support De Cleyre's treatment and help her fund her hospital fees. And even though they had some beef, Goldman did raise money for her.
Please tell me she didn't accept any money for this. In true fashion.
She did accept money as mutual aid.
Wow.
And I will say,
there's always a loophole.
Only if you count
I will
as
say,
mutual aid.
I'm pretty sure the beef was only on De Cleyre's side.
Yeah.
Like, like I think Goldman was just like, okay about the whole beef.
Yeah.
Goldman had other things to do. Yeah.
No, Goldman's pretty she knows it's important in this world.
Yeah. And so then they also raised money to aid Helcher and acquired 2 lawyers to defend him, and also had his mental state reviewed by Simon Dubin, who was an anarchist psychologist in Philly, and a friend of Voltairine. And because Helcher's sister had said that he had succumbed to typhoid fever in, I think, 1896, and had never been the same since, and that there was like a marked personality change after that. And so Simon Dubin came in and gave him basically a psych eval, and was like, yeah, no, he's clearly having some psychotic episodes probably caused by a prolonged fever.
I mean, it's plausible. Like,
yeah. I mean, fevers can really fuck up your brain.
Oh, yeah.
So,
especially when you don't have, like, modern medicine.
Yeah. You have ghosts in your blood. You should do cocaine about it. So,
yes. We are solidly and do cocaine about it. Time frame, I believe.
But that also just kind of supported the anarchist reasoning behind not trying him, that they recognized like everything that he did is just a symptom of a system that has discarded this person. Wow. So the solution isn't to put him in prison, because that's not going to solve anything.
I mean, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
They made some points.
Yeah. So she was discharged from the hospital on the 3rd of January. Discharged does not mean healthy. She was still in immense pain. It hadn't even been a full month since she was shot.
Wow.
And so she still had like 3 fairly open wounds and 3 bullets in her gut.
Sounds like going to the hospital today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darkly laughs.
But as she was walking down the front steps of the hospital, 2 plainclothes detectives came up to her and said they have a subpoena for her to appear in court.
Oh my God.
Okay, rude.
Oh my goodness. Wait a couple of days.
Let her see her cat. Like, goodness gracious.
Who's taking care of the cat this whole time?
The Colbin.
No, I actually think I know the answer to this.
Okay.
Yes.
No, you don't understand. Although, like, there was a lot of information in that book that I was like, I'm not sure why this is here. The father of her child would take care of her plants and stuff when she was out of town. So it was probably him.
Wow.
He doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah.
That's nice. Good to know. Good to know.
But so the 2 cops came up to her and she said, "Oh, I hope you won't prevent me from going home." And they said, "No, we won't prevent you from going home, but we need to take you to the courthouse," which is preventing her from going home. But so they walked her, or they basically walked her from Hahnemann Hospital down to City Hall. And the whole time they kept kind of like trying to press her to say that she would press charges against Telcher, and she kept saying no. And apparently I can't remember her name, the other anarchist lady that went to the hospital with her, Mary Hansen, like just had a fairly jovial conversation with the cop while assisting her thoroughly wounded friend walking down to City Hall.
Oh my goodness.
So they brought her down, or they brought her in to appear before a judge, and she had to come up and was getting sworn in to testify. So the judge was swearing her in, and mid-sentence she interrupts him and says that she couldn't abide by the oath as stated, because she was an atheist and could therefore not swear to God. Which also fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And this judge did not press that issue. I'm just like, okay, do you just agree to tell the whole truth? Like, fine, whatever. And then let her get off with that.
I mean, technically, the "so help me God" part was added in later.
Yeah.
I mean, like, when I say later, I mean like with Washington, but like,
yeah.
But it wasn't in the original.
Yeah.
So she's fine.
She's fine.
Yeah. So they had her sworn in, and the police were like, okay, she's going to tell, or she has to tell the truth, which means she has to say that she knows that Helcher shot her. And then they have an ironclad case for him. So they asked her again if Helcher was her assailant, and she said that he looks nothing like the man who shot her, which technically true.
Mm-hmm. What an icon.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, Helcher was less willing to save himself. And when he came up to the stand, he was just like, yeah, I shot her because she's my lover. She's in love with me, but she was ignoring my letters.
Oh.
And so he just...
My heart is so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sweet.
So sweet. I wish for a love like that.
I know, right?
Find you a man
who loves you like Helcher. Wait.
Yeah. So he claimed on the stand that they were like longtime lovers, but she had broken his heart because she refused to marry him. De Cleyre then came up and testified that there had never been any kind of marriage arrangement between them, and that there was never any romance between them. He was only ever her student, and that she like kicked him out years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then by January 12th, by January 12th is when they started the fund to get Helcher's defense set up and get him lawyers, because all of the anarchists were like, okay, this guy is not going to be helping us in saving him, so we need to get him some lawyers to tell him to shut up.
Jesus God.
I mean,
yeah,
he's not helping himself out too much.
But then De Cleyre was questioned about this and told reporters, all criminal acts, so-called, are in my opinion manifestations of disease, either in society or in the individual. I would consider it to be as senseless to punish Hermann Helcher as to punish a fever patient for seeing visions. Kindness, gentleness, mercy, and understanding, these are the remedies which society should give to its sick, not vengeance and punishment.
Okay. All
right. I can dig that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty
also,
cool.
Like, good
making
for her.
Some good points. Yeah.
I used to be a tour guide at Eastern State Penitentiary, and I have to say that it is really impressive to hear somebody who is the victim of a violent crime to talk like that, because usually that sort of experience changes your view.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially when you still have that violent crime inside of your body.
Yes. And would for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
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 So by the end of January, basically the case had wrapped up because the police were able to get enough evidence, including Helcher's testimony, to try him. And so they kept trying to get De Cleyre to press charges, but by the end they didn't even need her to do anything. So they were just harassing this wounded lady for a month and a half for no reason.
Well, imagine how pissed the police are. They're actually helping an anarchist and they're getting nothing in return.
You're right. We didn't think about the cops.
Yeah.
You're very right.
I'm sure it was very difficult for them. It was a really hard time.
Those poor police officers, Gabe.
They weren't even unionized at this point, so...
Oh yeah.
Boy.
That makes the difference.
They couldn't do anything.
No.
I did, by the way, I did recently run into an AI generated picture of cops arresting each other. And it's really funny.
That's awesome. And as always, shout out to the one police department that I know of that had class solidarity in 1934 and refused to arrest striking textile workers because the cops had just filed for union cards like right before that. Wow. And we're like, yeah, we're not going to break up a strike.
Wow. Hey.
So Helcher was sentenced to 6 years and 9 months imprisonment at the end of January. And I think in like mid-January, it was hard to get the dates on it. De Cleyre decided to take another trip around Europe, and actually going to all of the same places of like Scotland, France, and Norway.
Wow.
I don't know why she's going back to Norway if she didn't like it the first time.
Right.
So, okay. So I smushed all of her Europe trips together.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I was just like, whatever. She went to Europe.
Gotcha.
So yeah, this was the time she went to Norway or wherever and was like, this place is terrible.
Yeah. So while she was in Norway, or while she was preparing to go to Norway, there was another bit of like anarchist fever. And everyone immediately assumed that she was going to Norway specifically to assassinate Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was supposed to be visiting Norway at the same time.
She's like, I just want to see some fjords, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what I thought, why I thought that was so funny. But yeah, she just wanted to go see the fjords, and then she didn't even like them.
And so the other anarchist that lived with her, George Brown, when questioned about this, made a very exasperated and long-winded rebuttal in the papers. But it basically boils down to like, anytime an anarchist does fucking anything, you assume we're going to go assassinate a monarch. She just wants to go ski. It's fine. And yeah, he'd like took out a whole page response in the Inquirer, basically being like, just leave her alone.
Leave Brittany alone, guys.
Okay, so that was the attempted assassination and craziness around that. Do we want to just skip ahead to 1908?
Yeah, I think we better.
So then the next time that she really showed up in the papers a lot was the 1908 Broad Street riot. So there was a stock market crash in 1907, which weirdly just keeps happening every 5 to 10 years for no reason. Then
Capitalism!
Yay! So this left lots of Philadelphians out of work and like starving and hungry. Of the textile workers in the city, there were 28,000 total. 18,000 of them were out of work. Then so that's about 2/3. And also fun newspaper reporting note: the Lancaster Intelligencer Journal had like, I think, a page and a half all about the riot. It wasn't until the very last paragraph that they mentioned, oh yeah, this is all happening because there's a bunch of people out of work and starving.
Good journalism, guys.
Yeah, it's always good. So in February 1908, De Cleyre and a bunch of other anarchists and socialists distributed flyers among the Yiddish and Italian immigrants in the city, offering them an opportunity for work. Again, that's how the Lancaster Intelligencer Journal reported it. It's possible that that was slander, because what they were actually doing was holding a mass meeting, basically to preach anarchism and socialism. So they went to they held the meeting on February 20th, 1908 at the new Auditorium Hall at 747 South 3rd Street, which is now a small multifamily apartment complex with a gated driveway. So it went from like an anarchist place to car-focused development.
Wow.
So somehow they crammed like 1,000 men and 7 women, which got mentioned.
Okay.
It wasn't just a sausage party, guys.
Yeah. Into this hall. It's unclear if they were counting Voltairine as one of those women. Each speech was apparently accompanied by a bunch of different translators, because you had Italian anarchists, Yiddish anarchists, English-speaking anarchists talking to a crowd of Yiddish-speaking workers, Italian-speaking workers, and Black workers who would speak English. So they were describing it as like a Yiddish speaker would make a point, all of the Yiddish speakers in the crowd would cheer, and then like a minute later, all of the Italians would cheer, and then a minute later, all of the English speakers would cheer.
I love that. I love that.
So cool. Awesome. I love it.
I love it.
So De Cleyre, or the first speaker was Israel Levi, spoke in Yiddish, and he basically, his main focus was every man here deserves a good job and a minimum wage. So terrifying anarchist rhetoric. Mm-hmm. Then De Cleyre came up and basically lambasted the crowd for acting like downtrodden cattle and allowing their bosses to mistreat them. And she was basically like, you need to go march to City Hall and tell Mayor Rayburn to give you all jobs. And stop letting them be mean to you. So she said that all Rayburn had to do was sign the bills for municipal improvements, and that would create enough public works for all of them to get jobs. So then after De Cleyre, there were some other speakers like George Brown, who was the guy from 1902. An Italian speaker came up after him. Then there was a Yiddish speaker. After the Yiddish speaker finished, what was described as a large bearded man stormed in and waved an anarchist flag, which this was described as a red flag with a large black border, which is not an anarchist flag I've seen before. So if anyone wants to recreate that one, that would be cool. One of the speakers shouted "On to City Hall," and the whole crowd poured out of the building, marched down Catherine Street towards 7th, then down 7th to Christian, and then finally stopped at Broad Street to regroup.
That's a long walk, guys.
Yeah. And they also went south to get over to Broad to go north. They
didn't have Google Maps back then.
No, they didn't.
That's true. That's true.
So they had doubled in size, and because Italian and Black workers had started to join them, and at this point the police were alerted. So a couple cops came up, like individually, and asked this group of 2,000 people for their parade permit.
Damn it!
What a brave cop!
Yeah, I imagine that meme from, is it Community, where it's like, I do what I want.
Yeah. So that didn't work. They basically just ignored them and started marching up towards City Hall.
Yeah.
Then at South Street, there was a truck full of large wooden rods used in the manufacture of pianos.
Oh no.
I don't know what these are.
Oh no.
But it's unclear if this was intentional. But this truck blocked their path and parked sideways across Broad. So it's unclear if this was just like a guy trying to turn around and messing up a K-turn and just being like, oh shit, or if he was trying to block this crowd of angry Black and immigrant workers from moving up City Hall or moving up Broad.
But they didn't take the wooden rods.
Oh, they
themselves.
did.
I was about to say, he was like, have some wooden rods. You know, it's almost as
that was a little too tempting.
Well,
it's that or Kansas Soup Man. Like,
it'd be funny if they didn't, though.
Yeah,
if Gabe just put that into the story.
Well, it is a very specific truck.
Well, I don't think the truck driver was in on it because he got dragged out of the truck and beaten up.
Oh my god!
So yeah.
My god.
Okay. He probably didn't deserve that.
Yeah. No. So then
he's just a worker too, you guys.
Yeah. So then other guys pillaged the truck, and also it sounds like they not only grabbed all of the wooden rods out of the back, but like started disassembling the wooden framework on the back of the truck. And so everyone was now armed with big, heavy, blunt objects.
Great.
They're not the best. The piano wooden, I will say, I don't think the piano wooden rods will make the best weapon.
No,
because they're very thin and like
they're kind of light. Like
they're thin and light. So I don't like they're for a second I thought they were like the tappy tap tap part of the piano, but I think it's the back. I think it's the part that goes to the back.
That, I assume it's up the
sorry.
I'm guessing it's what holds the hammers.
The tappy tap parts of the piano.
Was that not clear?
Your partner plays piano.
Fun fact that piano people like to share, pianos are percussion instruments.
They are. That's a really good way to make piano people very angry.
The tappy tap parts.
The tappy tap taps. So they have, because they have the little hammers that hit the strings.
It creates sound by striking.
Yes. Percussion.
Striking's always good.
Yes.
Yeah. But pianos are not great weapons though, physically.
Well, maybe the whole thing, if you could like pick up the whole thing, that might be
Yeah,
if you could Looney Tunes drop a piano on somebody. This entire thing really was a Looney Tunes.
I'm waiting for the Acme anvil to come out.
What happens next?
It's Philly, so they took his catalytic converter as well. So
yeah.
And then Gritty showed up. And
yeah. I'm sure there were some light poles that were climbed.
Yeah.
So
not yet. We didn't start climbing light poles until the 80s.
True.
I hate that.
Not until they started greasing.
But these are all of the Italians who would have been doing the climb for the sausage thing.
The catch, not cacio e pepe. That's pepper pasta. I forget.
You should know, Isa. Everybody on my buses tells that story now because I started telling it, and then all the people I trained started hearing it, and it's like a thing now.
Yes,
you've got the new tour guideism came from
you.
Oh,
I'm so glad. It's a great and very true story.
So to make things less fun, counter protesters showed up now.
Yay! That makes it more fun, Gabe.
Yeah. So there were some street fights that broke out between the protesters and counter protesters, and a few cops arrived and tried to like calm things down. And all of the protesters were beaten back, or all of the cops were beaten back, except for George Brown, who was actually a black police officer who managed to apprehend 4 Italian marchers and then got shot afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
But it is also interesting that Philly had a black cop in 1908.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 1944 that we had black trolley drivers.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know what that says about the city, but it says something.
Mm-hmm.
No comment.
Yep.
I already praised the police once in this episode, and that's more than enough.
So pretty soon, a masked group of mounted police showed up and just charged into the crowd on horseback with clubs. And
there was William Williams dissecting one of them while they were going down the street.
I want to see how the muscles work while you're charging. So what's the Douglas Adams quote that if you take apart a frog to see how it works, the first thing you have is a frog that doesn't work?
I've never heard that, but it's very good.
Yep.
That's great.
That is a Douglas Adams quote.
So the Italians started to fight back, and it was reported that they were now heavily armed with knives, revolvers, and razors.
Holy shit!
What the
What happened to the piano rods?
I am very unclear as to the accuracy of a lot of this reporting, because it seemed a lot of it's just like, oh yeah, this crowd of protesters just randomly attacked this truck driver and started arming themselves. And now all of a sudden they have guns and knives.
I mean, we are solidly in like yellow journalism era, so they were probably just like making stuff up.
Basically, the only thing I trust in these newspapers are the addresses and street intersections.
They were very good at that.
They're meticulous about. So, and they also will always list the home address of anyone that gets arrested.
Yeah,
which is
nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Occasionally I hear a fact and I'm like, okay, we've made some progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was also a brief gunfight between Dominic Donnell and a police officer, Dominic Donnell was just one of the many anarchist agitators in Philly at the time.
They really knew how to name people back then.
Oh, yeah.
William Williams, Donna, oh, God.
Dominic Donnell.
Donald. I love that one.
So by 5 p.m., there were now 300 police, all of them armed with either pistols or clubs, and they had cornered the rioters and started to beat them back, and eventually broke up the crowd and got everyone dispersed. Now, while all of this was going on, De Cleyre and a lot of the organizers had realized, like, oh, this is not what we intended to happen today. We're going to get the fuck out of here. So she kind of ducked away, but did eventually get apprehended by the police, and was arrested on February 21st and held for trial while the police were investigating. And they apparently sent like a crap ton of plainclothes detectives throughout the immigrant neighborhoods in the city. And set up a whole ring of informants. They claimed that they uncovered a massive anarchist plot to overthrow the government.
Sure.
De Cleyre said that the riot happened too soon and they should have waited until they had organized a full 100,000 men and women. She argued that she didn't want the riot and did not incite the riot because she viewed the meeting as only the first in what was supposed to be a series of organizing opportunities. So her response wasn't, we don't want to overthrow the government. It's, we're not ready to overthrow the government. So we didn't do this.
It is just a real tragedy that she lived before Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
See, I'm split on that because on the one hand, it would be amazing to follow her. On the other hand, having Stalin and Trotsky on Twitter at the same time would be fucking terrifying.
Kind of awesome, maybe.
Yeah.
But,
So then she was brought before a magistrate and held on $2,500 of bail, which, according to officialdata.org, is about $80,000 today.
That's a rude amount of money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That bail was paid by Dr. Leo Gartman, one of the anarchist doctors that got William Williams to come review her. So it pays to have a nice Jewish doctor to come and pay your bail, which I'm sure is what Mama Gartman wanted for her son to be doing with all of his money. Okay, so she was initially supposed to have a trial on June 18th, but that was postponed for a day. And then on June 19th, she was acquitted. Because the police officer whose testimony the entire case rested on couldn't be found. Oh. So they needed him to show up for court, and he was just AWOL that day. And they're like, well, I guess we need to acquit you.
Okay.
Yep.
Lucky break. Yeah.
And so she got away scot-free because John Cannett decided to not show up to work that day.
I have several questions.
Okay.
None of which can be answered, but yeah.
Yeah, and that was the 1908 Broad Street riot
Okay.
Voltaire's association with it.
And then I take over. And then she died. Because we're low on time. I mean, that's essentially like what happened. Like, so she becomes her health is awful, and she becomes more isolated and depressed. She went to Chicago in 1909 for her annual Haymarket address, and visited her family in St. John's, and decided that she was over Philly and moved to Chicago. And
boo.
Yeah, I know,
For real.
right? And she moves to Chicago by way of speaking tour, which I thought was interesting. She thought that would help her depression. It did not. When she went to Chicago, she continued to tutor in English and write for anarchist magazines. One thing I do kind of enjoy is that she like really aggressively was anti the modern school movement, which was what I wrote here. I read up on it, so I was like, I don't know what this is. Basically, it's like a cross between Montessori, Waldorf, and unschooling. I hate to say this, I kind of agree with her. But she just like went hard on it. I don't know what that just made her mad. I don't know. She was really excited about the revolution in Mexico in 1911. She wrote about that a lot. In 1911 into 1912, she decided to drop the whole pacifism thing. She was just like, you know what, whatever, let's just blow stuff up. And she overworked herself, and then she died in 1912. And she is buried next to the graves of the Haymarket martyrs.
Huh. Okay.
Wow.
Oh, I missed one part. A priest came by to give the last rites, and she, like, even though she couldn't speak by that point, she apparently made it very clear that she did not want him there.
We do not need. You are not needed.
So she gave him the finger.
I that is a reasonable supposition.
Yeah. Well, she was a cool lady.
Yeah.
Damn.
She was a lot.
Yeah.
She was a lot.
Yeah, she's one of those people I can see, like, you know, that you're working with that's like, you know, she's a lot, but she gets things done.
Yeah. No, reading the book every once in a while, I had to just put it down and be like, okay.
I mean, like, she was like so stubborn, but like you have to respect it.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I respect her a lot, and also I would have not been able to stand her if I knew her in real life.
It was interesting reading all the newspaper accounts around her, because they always would emphasize like how fine-featured and like soft-spoken and beautiful she was, and then be like, oh, but she's this radical anarchist. And like they I think one of them was it was Fair Anarchist Queen Shot, or like the torrid life of an anarchist queen.
Oh my god.
Queen?
Yeah,
which hear the things that they say? Like
clearly they haven't been listening to her, but
yeah.
I mean sorry.
No, please. I didn't have anything to say.
They would do the same stuff with Emma Goldman, always being like this little anarchist lady who looks like, oh, she's such a nice little lady, and then she's coming up and being like, yeah, you should just go fucking murder your boss.
I mean, that's what they did with all. I mean, like, even like Public Universal Friend, they spent an absolutely outrageous amount of time being like, she's so pretty. And yeah. I'm like, it has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, so that's de Cleyre.
Awesome. I think I might have found a good picture of her with her cat.
I have pictures of her, but not including the cat. But
I want to see it.
How do you upload picture? I'll here. Hold on. I'll send a link.
We definitely got to release the picture with the cat.
I think this is her. It's in an article about her.
Everybody's listening.
Is that her?
Just look at that picture.
That could be. Did she get that old?
I don't think she did.
Oh.
It could be her.
Just a random woman with a cat. That's fine. I'm okay with that. That's her, everybody.
Her.
It kind of looks. I don't think that would be her in 1898, though.
Google old picture, old lady with cat.
Okay, the same article has a picture.
Okay, to be fair, she was really ill. And
that's
that
true.
ages you.
Well, unfortunately, I have to jump off, but
we all have to jump off because it is the end
of
the episode.
Well, this was a pleasure.
It was a collab that must happen again,
and it will because we're gonna talk about Leon Chogosh for our podcast. I've just been like fully immersed in Gilded Age anarchists, like just
a golden time.
All right.
Well, thank you, Isa, Fayga. Truly A-listers of podcasting.
Wow.
Thank you very much for allowing us to join you on this episode. It was very entertaining.
Thank you for having us.
Our longest episode yet, but probably one of the most fun. I mean, damn.
I mean, it involves exploding cigars. Like it
does. This was a Looney Tunes episode.
It was.
Pianos as weapons. What else did we have?
A fake mustache.
A fake mustache.
Yes, so.
Which really takes the cake.
All right. So from everybody here at D-Listers of History and Labor John, that's all, folks.